Hi everyone and Happy New Year to you all. I'm Louise from Doodle and I'm going to be showing you how I set up my journal for the new year with Colt pens. The notebook I'm using today is the Legami My notebook in this gorgeous malachite green colour in the medium size. This one has got a dot grid structure inside, which means there are small dots that form an overall grid structure. It also has some handy weather and date markers. You'll see we've also got a back pocket and a double ribbon marker to mark the pages that you're currently on. This notebook does come in plain, lined, dot grid and square grid paper too. Inside there's some pre-made pages such as a world map, yearly goals page and monthly planning pages. I think I'm actually going to mark my world map page with my adorable koala paperclip here from Midori. Midori always have so many quirky products, so definitely go check them out. These in particular are great because they lie flat, which means your paper doesn't get crinkled. I've got these in the shape of rabbits, zoo animals, and even aquarium themed ones too. For my setup, I like to begin with my yearly pages first so I can easily refer to them at the front of my journal. Then I'll begin to create monthly and weekly pages. With any new dot grid notebook, I like to create a grid spacing cheat sheet. This type of journaling involves a lot of counting dots to measure spacing and lay out your pages, so sometimes you want a quicker way of doing this, so a cheat sheet is great. So to start, I'm going to draw a line vertically and horizontally across the length and width of my page with my Tombow mono drawing pen. I'm then going to count across and down how many dots there are, and I'll write that down at the end of each line. And I can divide this into two and I'll immediately be able to find my middle. I'll mark this out in a different colour because this will be my most referred to point. I can then go ahead and divide up the space even more depending on how I'll use the journal. For me personally, I like to divide up my space into thirds and quarters. So I'll just count this out and I'll write the number of dots in each section. This can be quite a long process, but trust me, it saves you having to count out your dots every single time. I'm then going to go in with my Tombow Fudenoski pen and I'll just write a quick header in my leftover space. I'm now going to go ahead and create a cover page, and this will illustrate the theme I'll be using throughout my yearly journal pages. I think I'm going to go for a colour theme of greens and purples. For my cover page, I want to keep it quite simple, so I'm going to write 2024 in some different styles. For this part, I'm going to be using my Tombow mono drawing pens for detail, and for colour I'll be using my favourite pens of all time, and that's the Tombow ABT dual brush pens. My collection is growing quite rapidly. You'll see that they're double-ended, so we have a soft, flexible brush nib on one side, which creates bolder, thicker lines, great for colouring and brush lettering. And you'll also see we have a fine nib on the other side, which can be used for more precise lines and detailing. They come in 107 different colours, really easy to use and to control on your paper. They're water-based, so they can be easily blended with each other, and they won't bleed through your paper as easily as an alcohol marker might. I personally love to create a cover page because it establishes the notebook, and I always find it's just great to begin your journal with something fun and creative like a cover page. Now we're going to make a year at a glance page. Because this journal already has a monthly plan built in, we'll be creating our year at a glance on this page, which basically illustrates the entire calendar year in one page. For spacing, I'm going to count out 7 spaces across to account for each day of the week, then I'll leave a gap and I'll repeat this 2 times. And working from the bottom, I'll count out 5 to 6 spaces to represent the amount of weeks in the month. I'll leave a space to write my weekdays and another 2 spaces to write out my month. I'll repeat this for each month until I have a rough idea about my page layout. Now that I've marked out my page, I'm going to dive straight in and write in the month name. So we'll start with January here. I'm using the Fudenoski pen by Tombow, as it has a firmer brush nib which allows a bit more control when writing smaller format words like this. I'm going to repeat this for all the month names. I want to highlight my weekdays here, so I'm going to run my Tombow brush pen through each of my weekday sections. I'm choosing a purple to match my theme, and then I'm going to write down the weekdays on top of it with my Tombow mono drawing pens. And I'll repeat this for all 12 months. I'm now going to write in the dates for each month, and again I'll repeat this for all 12 months. And once that's all done, all I have to do is rub out my pencil marks, and that's my year at a glance page finished. You'll notice each time I create a new page, you can't see the pens showing through to the other side, which is great if you're drawing or using a lot of colour like me. The next page I want to make is a vision board. For my vision board, I've printed off a few aspirational photos. This might be places I want to see, goals I want to hit, things I want to improve on, or just imagery I aspire to. By the end of this process, I should have a page full of aspirations that I can revisit through the year to motivate me. After I've cut out all my photos and positioned them in place roughly, I'll begin sticking them down with washi tape. We've got some decorative washi tape from MT, which is the original washi tape from Japan. It has this translucent quality to it, and it's highly pigmented, so there's loads of great colours and patterns. It also has a low tack, so it can be stuck on and peeled off really easily without leaving any of that sticky residue. One great thing about washi tape is that because it comes in so many colours, you can use it as a quick cheat to make some backgrounds. I've made this striped one here, again sticking to my theme of purples and greens. I also like to cut some thinner strips of washi tape to create frames around each image for a scrapbook looking effect. Now that I've stuck all my photos down, you'll see I've left a space in the middle, and this is where I'm going to add my header. For this, I'm going to write Vision Board 2024, and I'm going to add some doodles around it. And this is the finished vision board. Now, the last page we're going to make for our setup is a yearly tracker. This one has complete freedom as it will be personal to you and your own goals. For me, I'm going to create a reading tracker because one of my goals is to read 24 books this year. But you can create a tracker based on anything you want. I'm going to start off by drawing the outline of a bookshelf with my Tombow mono drawing pens and making enough space so that I can fit in 24 books. These books will be made up of rectangles, so each time I finish reading a book, I'll be able to fill it in and I'll visually be able to see how many books I've read or how many more I have to read until I reach my goal. It's also a great way to keep a log of all the books I've read this year. Maybe you're planning on getting fitter this year, or maybe you want to learn a new language. You can use these goals to create a tracker page that tracks your progress, filling it in as you reach each milestone towards your end goal. What's great about this is trackers like this are so visual that seeing empty spaces can actually encourage you to achieve your goals because you'll want to fill these pages up. So I've made space for 24 books, but I do have some gaps, so I'm going to add in some doodles to my tracker page just so it looks visually interesting to look at and a bit more personal to myself. I'm also going to add in some colour again with my ABT dual brush pens, and I'll be keeping the theme by using some purples and greens in here. Now you can include as many different trackers as you like in your journal setup, or add in some other fun pages, such as destinations you want to visit, restaurants you'd like to eat at, movies you've watched, maybe year in photos, anything you'll refer to throughout the year. Now that I've set it all up, I'm going to write in my first book of the year. I have only just finished it this morning, but I'm counting it, so I'm going to write it in my reading tracker. The last step is to make my header for my reading tracker. I'm using the Tombow mono drawing pen to outline my words, and then I'll go in with a Tombow brush pen to create a two-tone colour. I'm using a mixture of lilac and periwinkle here. And then I'll add in my other words using the Tombow Fudinowski pen. And I think that's my reading tracker finished. Now that's my yearly setup finished. This is how I set up my journal for the year, but I encourage you to add your own flair and some pages that suit your own lifestyle too. It's a similar process as you make monthly and weekly pages, but instead these would be things you use in a certain month or week. Cover pages and goals work great for your monthlies. Tracker and planning pages work really good for weeklies too. If you're ever in need of page suggestions, layout ideas, or have any journal questions, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at doodle.co. Everything I've used in this video can be found on the Cult Pens website, and so much more too. So I hope you guys have an amazing time setting up your journal for the rest of the year.